Good morning, everyone. Nice to see everybody again. Welcome to the Windward Buddhist Temple Eshinni and Kakushinni Day Service. My name is Miles Yamamoto, and I will be your MC. We begin the service with the ringing of the temple bell, or kansho. This signifies the beginning of the temple service. It is a deep and sacred ritual steeped in ancient tradition. It is the calling of the people to come together to listen to the Dharma or teaching. The temple bell represents the gratitude and deep appreciation of the members, friends, and guests of Windward Buddhist Temple. Please sit quietly in your seats. Please rise for the meditation, followed by the chanting of the Vandana Ti-Sarana by the congregation in Pali and in English. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it can be found in page 7 of the red Jodo Shinshu service book. Please be seated. We will now have Aspiration by Reverend Sumikawa.
It is with deep gratitude to Eshinni, whose letters that were found 100 years ago revealed that the Nembutsu teachings guided the life of a real living person, that of Shinran Shonin. We learn from those letters how deeply Eshinni cared for her husband and children while living apart from him as he was pursuing his lifelong studies. Through her harsh life, she rejoiced in the Nembutsu path through difficult conditions. We rejoice in the memory of Shinran's daughter Kakushinni, because had it not been for her, his teaching might not have been available for us. She kept the memory of her father alive by using land that was made available through her second husband to create a memorial. Her lineage continues to this day through her son and succeeding 25 generations with the present head of the Honganji, the Monshu Kojun Otani. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Lawanda.
Please turn to page 112 in the red Jodo Shinshu service book for the Sutra, Praises of the Buddha.
Shines in great splendor, boundless, wondrous dignity, such the greatness of your light, beyond all comparison, brightness of the sun, transcends all comparison. The great voice of awakening resounds through the 10 quarters. Your precepts, learning, effort, meditation, wisdom are virtues beyond all compare, ultimate, supreme, and rare. Your deep meditation has fathomed all the Dharma sea to the limits and the depths of all things the Buddhists teach. Ignorance, anger, and greed, the world-honored one has none. Like a lion among men, measureless your great virtue, vast are your great virtuous deeds, wisdom deep and so sublime, your radiant luminous light shakes all the world's foundations. When I become a Buddha, accepts patience and effort, meditation and wisdom shall be supreme, unsurpassed. I will attain Buddhahood, everywhere fulfill my vow, bringing to all those in fear great peace and tranquility. Though there are myriad Buddhas, beyond measure, beyond count, and great sages numberless, like the grains of Ganges sands, I will honor each of them, equally accepting none, even more importantly. I will seek the supreme way, even though all Buddha worlds are countless as Ganges sands, even though all lands and realms are boundless without measure, yet my light shall reach them all and illumine every place. Such shall be my perfect work, such my power infinite. When I attain Buddhahood, my land will be first and best, place of practice transcendent, its people sublime and rare, land equal to nirvana, beyond all comparison, with pity for everyone, I will carry all across, all who come from 10 quarters, to be born into my land, to attain pure joyful mind, peace and great tranquility. Be my witness, Buddha, please confirm my sincerity. Now that I have made my vows, I will strive to fulfill them. Buddhas of the 10 quarters, with your of Amida's vow, Eshinni calling my all, together attaining, awaken mind, we are born in the land of peace. Namanda, 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 namanda.
Please rise for the Gatha, Arigatai, found in the page 15 of the purple supplemental service book. Please be seated. Our Dharma Talk today will be given by Reverend Brennan.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's not my Dharma talk. Lois Toyama was supposed to be here today, but she had an accident and is in great pain. But over the next week, she'll improve and be well. So I want to give a brief background on Lois. She grew up in Massachusetts, went to, she was the eldest of 10 children. She's a graduate of the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. She got a BA in English and from Northeastern University, where she received her Master of Education in Counseling. Lois worked for the Hawaii State Department of Education for 40 years as an educator, counselor, and a resource teacher. She has been active in the Honganji Buddhist Women's Association, both at her temple, the district, and the state. Most recently, she served as the immediate past president of the Honpa Honganji Mission of Hawaii Federation of Buddhist Women's Association. She is married to Piper Toyama, whom you probably all know, and they have two daughters and 4 grandchildren. Lois enjoys reading, walking, taking art classes, photography, and keeping up with friends on Facebook. So if you do Facebook, you'll be able to see her, click on her. Okay. It's a privilege for me to share Lois's talk. Her title is Eshinni Kakushinni, and also World Peace Day. So I will begin her talk. I'm honored to speak at this special service, which honors Eshinni and Kakushinni. Every spring, BWA members around the world celebrate Lady Eshinni and Kakushinni, the wife and daughter of Shinran Shonin, who was the founder of Jodo Shinshu. Eshinni Day was established at the World Buddhist Women's Convention in Sao Paulo, Brazil in 1978. At the World Buddhist Women's Convention in Japan 8 years later, in 1986, Eshinni Day was designated World Peace Day. At the World Convention in 2002, again in Sao Paulo, Eshinni Day was also designated as a day to honor Kakushinni. Today, I'd like to speak about Eshinni and Kakushinni and the impact their actions had on the propagation of Jodo Shinshu. I'd also like to honor other women who have made extraordinary contributions to Honganji. I find the story of Eshinni an intriguing one. Not much is known about her except through the series of 10 letters which she wrote to Kakushinni. As Bert mentioned, they were only discovered about 100 years ago, in 1921. The 10 letters span the years 1256 to 1268. The first letter was written when Eshinni was 75 years old. She was 87 when she wrote her last letter. 8 of them were written after the death of Shinran, who died in 1262. When Eshinni was 72 years old, she returned to Echigo from Kyoto with 3 of her sons to manage her family property and servants. Kakushinni stayed in Kyoto to look after Shinran. In medieval Japan, wife-centered marriages were common. The husband often came to live with his wife's family or to live in a house provided by them. The wife inherited her family's wealth, and the husband had little to say in the management of that wealth. Eshinni's letters are full of the challenges of everyday life, and her challenges were immense. As a landowner, Eshinni was concerned about the crops and famine. As the owner of 8 servants, she cared about their well-being and about the diseases which plagued them. As a mother, she was concerned that she would never live to see Kakushinni again. As a grandmother who was raising 2 of her grandchildren after their mother died, she worried about what would happen to them after her own death. These are concerns we all can relate to. In her first letter, Eshinni describes her 8 servants and bequeaths them to Kakushinni. In almost every letter, she says that she is sure she will die soon. She describes her personal illnesses, the effects of aging, quote, "I am now feeble-minded from the effects of old age, and so I am no longer my old true self." Famine was a fact of life in medieval Japan. During Eshinni's lifetime, there were 3 major famines. In her 3rd letter, she says, "In this province, the crop was severely damaged last year. There are many whom I do not expect to survive. Since most of our community is ruined, there is virtually no place to which one can turn. 2 male servants who had served me for years passed away in the first month of the year." Right here, Lois diverges from her talk about Eshinni, and she wants to tell you about a book. Not a book, something that she had just read. It's called "Feels Like Home, A Song for the Sonoran Borderlands," and was written by Linda Ronstadt and Lawrence Downs. Excuse me. Lawrence Downs was a Kailua boy. It's largely a history of the Ronstadt family in the Sonoran Desert, which spans southern Arizona and northern New Mexico, Linda's great-grandmother, Margarita, wrote a series of letters to her son who was working away. She describes the death of another son from a plague, diphtheria, and she talks about their failing business and the need to let some servants go. As Lois read these letters, she was struck by the thought, this is Eshinni, separated by hundreds of years, thousands of miles, a different culture and religion. Eshinni and Margarita were women who faced the same challenges and hoped for the same things. They wanted to be reunited with their children, to take care of those around them who were suffering, and to help manage their lands. While living a life of tremendous responsibility for the productivity of her land and the health and welfare of the many family members and servants who depended on her, Eshinni was also concerned about living the Nembutsu. She told Kakushinni, "In the land of bliss, we will know everything clearly, so I hope you shall live the life of Nembutsu and come join me there." In her 3rd letter, Eshinni writes about a dream she had, which was a vision of Shinran as Kannon, the bodhisattva of compassion. In letters 7 and 8, she specifies a memorial that she wants to be built in honor of Shinran. She wants it to be made of stone 7 feet tall with 5 tiers. She fears that she will not live to complete the monument, so asks her children to complete it if she's not able to. 10 years after Shinran died, Kakushinni established a chapel to honor him. The chapel had a statue of Shinran on the altar, and his ashes were held there. The site became a pilgrimage spot for followers to come to pay their respects and to worship. When Kakushinni's husband died, he had left this land to her with instructions to leave it to one of their sons when she died. Instead, she placed it in the name of Shinran's followers and designated her descendants as caretakers of the temple. This evolved into the hereditary position of head priest that we have today. By building the chapel and leaving it in the care of her descendants, Kakushinni was a main force in establishing the Honganji. As our own Bishop Eric Matsumoto said, Eshinni and Kakushinni were much more than the wife and daughter of Shinran Shonin. In his book, I have it right here, Jeff Wilson states that Shin only exists because of the efforts of women. That is a very bold statement. He describes Eshinni as the co-founder of Jodo Shinshu along with Shinran. Dr. Wilson cites Eshinni's partnership with Shinran during his exile and the example they set by marrying and raising a family, demonstrating that lay people could lead an authentic religious life. Dr. Wilson goes on to assert that the founder of the Honganji is actually Kakushinni, the daughter of Shinran, and Eshinni. Amid the struggles of daily life, women continue to play a strong role in the development of the Honganji. Lady Takako Kujo, born in 1887, was the daughter of the 21st Gomonshu of Nishi Honganji. At this time, women were considered inferior to men, but Lady Kujo was engaged in missionary work and spoke at temple gatherings. With her sister-in-law, Lady Kasuko Otani, Lady Takeko Kujo established ladies' clubs, which eventually developed into the Fujinkai, now the Buddhist Women's Association. Lady Kujo was well known for her charitable work in the slums of Tokyo. During the Kanto earthquake of 1923, Fujinkai members from throughout Japan donated food and clothing, and Lady Kujo and her helpers distributed them to those affected by disaster. Lady Kujo wrote many things. One of her books is called Leaves of My Heart, wonderful poetry. And I'm not sure, I don't think it was in the library. Yeah, Bob? At about the same time, closer to home, the Japanese immigrants to Hawaii were facing harsh conditions in the coffee fields and sugar and pineapple plantations. In his book, Dharma Treasures, Spiritual Insights from Hawaii's Shin Buddhist Pioneers, Reverend Tatsuo Muneto captures the lives of the Issei women from Kona as they struggled to adapt to this new land and to grow in their Buddhist faith. And this is what his book looks like. That is in the library, I believe. One of these women, Haru Matsuda, struggled with an unsettled heart and a troubled mind. She felt that others were more compassionate and aware than she. She sought the advice of Reverend Kenkyo Murota, resident minister of the Kona Honganji Temple. He replied, "Are you trying to fix your mind by your own self? That's ridiculous, like trying to squeeze size 6 feet into a pair of size 5 shoes." When she asked what to do, he replied, "A pair of size 6 shoes have already been made for you by the shoemaker, and they're waiting for you." Reverend Muneto sees this as a metaphor for discovering the life that fulfills our deepest aspirations. It is the life of the Nembutsu in accordance with the primal vow. Come, just as you are. The Kona Issei wrote poems in which they shared their spiritual journeys. Mrs. Matsuda says, "Embraced by Namo Amida Butsu, I vowed not to complain. Thinking thus, I again complained." I recently read the book, Memoirs of a Buddhist Woman Missionary in Hawaii. And this is another book, which is at the Honganji bookstore if you're interested. And I will leave it for the library here. I honestly picked it up thinking I might find a quote or two for this talk. Instead, I found the book to be a fascinating read. Mrs. Kikuchi came from Japan in 1914 to join her husband, who was a Japanese minister at Wailuku. Her husband was later transferred to Naalehu. She describes the harsh living conditions, lack of electricity, and lizards. As a minister's wife, Mrs. Kikuchi taught Dharma school and Japanese language school. She walked miles to offer the teachings to people in Waiohinu. She helped people write letters to their families in Japan. She boarded school children at her home. During World War II, when her husband was interned on the mainland, Mrs. Kikuchi took over many of his duties. After a period of time, she was given the option of joining her husband at the internment camp. Instead, she chose to stay in Naalehu to continue the Nembutsu teachings and to offer support to Naalehu and Pahala residents. In the face of hardship and tragedy, the women of Honganji worked hard to deal with the tribulations of daily life while spreading the Nembutsu. We all face hardships in our lives. Eshinni's life was more difficult than I can imagine. Every day she faced issues of survival. Yet her passion to build a memorial to her husband, Shinran, changed the course of Jodo Shinshu. Takeku Kujo rallied women to form the Buddhist Women's Association at a time when women did not have power in society, and in the process, she left a legacy which continues to this day. The Issei women in Hawaii faced struggles and hardships in the fields, yet found time to listen to and share the Nembutsu teachings. Shigeo Kikuchi spread the teachings and offered support and comfort to others in spite of challenges she faced in her own life. Each of you did this while also tending to the responsibilities of home, career, family, and community. To this day, Honpa Honganji Mission of Hawaii Federation of Buddhist Women's Associations carries on the legacy of sharing the Nembutsu teachings and improving conditions in our communities. At the federation or state level, Buddhist Women's Association contributed $2,000 toward the publication of the book, Leaves of My Heart. This book is a compilation of poems and reflections written by Lady Kujo. BW members statewide led Hawaii's part in a worldwide campaign to raise money to fund an Eshinni Kakushinni endowed chair at the Institute of Buddhist Studies in Berkeley. With contributions from temples around the state, we were able to raise $15,000 to help fund this faculty position. This position will honor the impact which Eshinni and Kakushinni had on the establishment of the Honganji and will train future ministers who will promote the vision and passion of these two women. Thank you for your contributions to this important effort. I'm happy to report that this year, the Institute of Buddhist Studies has appointed Dr. Paula Arai as the first Eshinni and Kakushinni professor of Women and Buddhist Studies. Dr. Arai is known for her scholarship on women in Buddhism. On Eshinni Day, World Peace Day, it also seems appropriate to reflect for a moment on the Jodo Shinshu Buddhist teachings on peace. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." Our spiritual leader, Monchu Kojun Otani, says, "World peace must begin with each person. If each of us does not recognize that, then things will never change." Hawaii's Bishop Eric Matsumoto says that people of Nembutsu who reflect the Dharma are nurtured and contribute towards world peace and harmony through awareness and humility. In the introduction to Mrs. Kikuchi's book, Memoir of a Woman Missionary in Hawaii, Ruth Tabor writes, "In Shin Buddhism, the mission is neither intrusive or aggressive. It is a quietly natural way of conducting one's life, relating to others, and doing whatever possible in however small ways to help make this world a pure land, a realm of enlightenment, peace and joy with no discrimination, no distinctions, no prejudice, no violence or exploitation, aggression, or suppression." This introduction is a beautiful summary of how Mrs. Kikuchi led her life as a minister's wife and reminds us of how we too can continue the legacy of Eshinni Day as World Peace Day. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much to Lois for her beautiful message. It was a privilege to read her talk, sharing her thoughts and reflections on Eshinni Day. We hope to see her in the future in person next time. Thank you very much. If anyone is interested, I will have these books on the back table so you can get a better look at them.
Thank you, Reverend Brennan, for sharing Mrs. Toyama's thoughts. As I was sitting there listening to it, it's amazing to realize all the things we take for granted as worshipers that actually were a legacy of women, which is amazing to think about our movement as really being standing on the shoulders of great women who didn't seem very great at the time, but actually in their legacy have become very great, amazing women. Please express our wishes for a speedy recovery to Lois, so hopefully we'll see her soon. Please rise for the Gatha, Quest of Life, on page 126 in the Brown Praises of the Buddha book, and please continue to stand for the Nembutsu.
Thus I've praised the virtues of Amida. His meritorious acts are as boundless as the waters of the sea. Upon receiving these pure and good qualities, may all beings be born into this land. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha.
Please be seated. This concludes our service for today. Coming up next, we have President Dennis with announcements.
Good morning, everyone. Beautiful day. Couldn't believe the sun woke me up this morning. It was so nice. Thank you to Lois for that message. We do all wish her well. Thank you, Reverend Barbara, for reading that message. Thank you, Reverend Bird. Thank you, Miles, for being the MC. Good job. Brother Neil, for being our greeter. Lisa, for playing the piano. And Cynthia, for ringing the kansho. And I always forget to mention the one that does such a big production of our services and getting it out there to the world, Ryan Miyamoto. Let's give him a hand. Thank you for everything, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Today's refreshment will be, it's done by Team C, led by Merle. Announcements. Today is the last day of our food drive to support the Hawaii Food Bank. We have been collecting food as well as cash, monetary donations. Last week, sometimes I forget things, so. Oh, I should have brought that book up. Last week I talked, somebody, was it you, Barbara, mentioned about the book by Piper Toyama. It's titled Family Stories from the Plantation and Beyond. I have the book back there. The proceeds from the sale of the books will benefit Jikoen Honganji Temple. So take a look at it. You know, it's stories about Piper growing up in a small town and how he then proceeded on to the bigger world. He went to college and got into his business life, raising a family and so on. If you grew up in a little plantation town, or maybe your parents, or maybe even your grandparents might have. You know, if you read through the book, I mean, you'll hear Piper's story, but I bet you, if you think, you can picture, if not yourself, you can picture your parents, you can picture your grandparents, and how they probably experienced the same thing. I only read a little bit of the book, but I found it quite interesting. So take a look at the book, and if you're interested, just sign up. What I'll do is whoever wants, I'll pick up the books and I'll have it next week, and you can either pay now or write a check out to Jikoen Honganji, or we'll work out the details anyway. But take a look at the book. Next Sunday will be our remembrance service. If you would like to remember a loved one who passed away in the month of April of any year, you may do so during this remembrance service. We'll have a sign-in list so you can write in your loved one's name. And if you have a picture you'd like to display up at the altar, we can do that too. Let's see. Last week I mentioned about the LGBTQIA 101 class. Initially, the flyer had a deadline of April 15th, yesterday, but they are continuing to accept registrations. I think it's very interesting to learn about, you hear about the movement, and I really truly don't understand everything. I mean, I remember when it was just LGBT, and now what is the rest of it? So I want to learn something. I'll be watching that via Zoom. So they are doing it live at the Buddhist Study Center, but you can also watch it via YouTube. There's a link listed on the flyer. You can just go to that site, add in a few information about yourself, and they'll send you a link to that to the Zoom when it's ready. Okay. There's a lecture coming up this Thursday, April 20th. The title of the lecture is Waves of Change, Japanese Buddhist Women in Hawaii. I'll read a brief write-up on it. Let's see. Beginning in the latter half of the 19th century, successive waves of Japanese Buddhist immigrants settled in the Kingdom of Hawaii, bringing with them a variety of Japanese Buddhist schools and traditions. Overcoming many hardships, Japanese immigrant women worked with great devotion to help establish numerous temples in the Hawaii through Buddhist women's associations known as Fujinkai. So this kind of follows our message today. Persevering through the war years and through successive waves of cultural adaptation, they transmitted and protected Buddhist values with humility, generosity, and compassion. This is a story of cultural integration, social transformation, and spiritual resilience told through the lives of women in Jodo Shinshu, true Pure Land, the largest branch of Japanese Buddhism. So again, Thursday, April 20th, 6:30 to 7:30. It'll be live at the University of Hawaii, Watanabe Hall, room 112. But it's also going to be done via Zoom. And all you need to do is take a picture of this QR code, and you can get yourself registered. So I'll have these flyers up on the bulletin board, so take a look at them, and I think it'll be quite interesting. Okay, any other announcements? If not, it's time to eat. So let's do the words of thanksgiving. I'm getting hungry myself. So turn to page 126 of the red service book. We are truly grateful for this wonderful food, a gift of life. May we share its benefits with all beings. As we partake of this food, let us remember Amida Buddha's compassion, which surrounds all people and all forms of life. Namo Amida Butsu. Itadakimasu. Thank you very much. Have a great day.